I know that most of you won't make it to the end of this video. I'm not asking you to. But I know that if you do, it might just change your life. Not because I have some secret. Not because I figured everything out. But because I learned something the hard way. Something I wish someone told me before I spent years giving parts of myself to people who were never planning to stay. It starts small. It always does. You meet someone and nothing feels forced. You don't rehearse what you're going to say. You don't question how long to wait before replying. You just exist, and somehow they meet you there. And for the first time in a long time, you feel calm. Not excited, not anxious, just calm. Like your nervous system can finally rest. They laugh at your dumb jokes. They notice things about you that nobody else ever pointed out. They make you feel seen in a way that's almost uncomfortable because you didn't realize how invisible you felt before them. And slowly, without even realizing it, they become part of your routine. They become the person you want to tell everything to. The first person you think of when something good happens. The only person you want when something goes wrong. And that's when it becomes dangerous. Because you stop preparing for the possibility of losing them. You start believing they're permanent. You start believing they're different. You start trusting them with parts of yourself you spent years protecting. Parts nobody else ever earned. You show them your insecurities, your fears, your past. The parts of you that aren't impressive or confident or put together. And they look at you like none of it makes you less. Like none of it scares them away. Like they're staying. But then something changes. Not all at once. Not in some dramatic explosion. Just slowly, quietly. They stop replying as fast. The conversations get shorter. They stop asking questions they used to care about. You feel it immediately, but you don't say anything because you're afraid of sounding insecure. You're afraid of pushing them away faster. So you pretend you don't notice. You pretend you're okay with less. Less attention, less effort, less of them. You convince yourself this is normal, that this is just what happens over time. But deep down, you know the truth. You know when someone is slowly leaving you, even if they haven't said it yet. And the worst part isn't the distance. It's the hope that maybe they'll come back. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe they're just going through something. Maybe if you're patient enough, understanding enough, low maintenance enough, they'll remember why they chose you in the first place. So you try harder. You become easier to love. You ask for less. You accept things that would have hurt you before. You stay quiet when something bothers you. You make yourself smaller so they don't feel overwhelmed by you, and you don't even realize you're disappearing. Until one day, you look at yourself, and you don't recognize who you became. Someone quieter, someone more anxious, someone who checks their phone more than they should, someone who feels relieved just to get a reply that used to be normal. And that's when it hits you. You weren't asking for too much, you were asking the wrong person, because the right person never makes you feel like loving them is a risk to your own stability. The right person doesn't slowly replace your peace with anxiety. They don't make you question your worth. They don't make you feel like you're lucky just to be tolerated. But when you lose someone like that, it changes you. Not in some dramatic, obvious way, but in quiet ways. You hesitate before opening up again. You overanalyze small changes in people's behavior. You protect yourself because you remember what it felt like to trust someone completely and watch them slowly become a stranger. But here's the part that actually changes your life. It wasn't a waste. It wasn't meaningless, because losing them forced you to meet yourself. The version of you that survived without them. The version of you that learned how to be alone. The version of you that realized your value was never dependent on someone else choosing you. And one day, you stop checking their name. You stop wondering what they're doing. You stop hoping they'll come back, not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about yourself more. You realized that some people were never meant to stay forever. They were meant to show you how deeply you're capable of loving. They were meant to show you your own heart. And even though it broke, it proved something important. You were real, you were genuine, you were capable of loving fully. And one day someone will meet you at that same depth. Not temporarily, not halfway, not conditionally, completely. And when that happens, you won't have to shrink yourself to keep them. Because the right person doesn't make you feel like you're hard to love. They make you feel like you were worth finding all along. But there's something nobody tells you after they leave. You don't just lose them. You lose the version of yourself that existed when they were there. And that's the part that takes the longest to grieve. because it wasn't just about them. It was about who you were when you believed someone was choosing you. You were softer, more open. You laughed easier. You didn't overthink every small shift in tone or timing. You weren't afraid of silence, because silence didn't mean abandonment back then. It just meant peace. But after they left, silence meant something else. It meant absence. It meant wondering. It meant staring at your phone longer than you should, even when you knew nothing was coming. And you start doing things you never used to do. Replaying old conversations in your head, trying to pinpoint the exact moment things started changing. The exact moment you became less important. You wonder if it was something you said, something you did, or maybe something you didn't do enough. You question yourself in ways that slowly erode your confidence, because it's easier to blame yourself than accept the truth. That sometimes people leave, not because you weren't enough, but because they weren't capable of staying. And that realization feels unfair, because you stayed, even when it hurt, even when you felt the distance growing, even when part of you knew the ending was already written. You stayed not because you were weak, but because you loved them in a way that didn't have an exit plan. You didn't love them halfway. You didn't prepare yourself for their absence. You trusted their presence. And that's what made it real. That's what made it dangerous. Because when someone becomes part of your emotional foundation, losing them doesn't just hurt your heart. It destabilizes your entire sense of safety. You stop trusting stability. You stop trusting permanence. You stop trusting words. Because you remember how convincing they sounded when they said they weren't going anywhere. And now you understand something you wish you didn't. People don't always leave suddenly. Sometimes they leave slowly. Sometimes they leave while they're still physically there. Sometimes the person you miss is someone who already stopped being yours long before they actually left. And the most painful part is how normal everything looks on the outside. The world keeps moving, people keep laughing, life keeps happening. But inside you, something is still trying to process the loss. Still trying to understand how someone could go from being your safest place to being someone you can't reach anymore. And that's when loneliness feels the heaviest. Not when you're physically alone, but when you realize how emotionally alone you've become. Because there's no closure, no clear explanation, just distance, just silence, just the quiet acceptance that the version of them you loved doesn't exist anymore. And eventually, you stop asking questions out loud, not because you found the answers, but because you got tired of hearing silence respond. You stop checking their profile, stop rereading old messages, stop hovering over their name like it still means something. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally understood something that took you too long to accept. You can't force someone to value you by staying available. You can't prove your worth to someone who already decided not to see it. And you can't keep holding on to someone who already let go of you. So you start doing something unfamiliar. You start sitting with yourself. At first it feels unbearable, because without them, there's nothing distracting you from your own thoughts. No notifications, no reassurance, no temporary relief from the emptiness they left behind. Just you and everything you've been avoiding. You realize how much of your identity was built around their presence, how much of your happiness depended on their attention, how much of your peace depended on their consistency. And without it, you feel exposed. Like you have to rebuild yourself from nothing. There are nights where it hits harder than usual, where everything reminds you of them. A song, a smell, a random memory that shows up without permission, and for a moment it feels like you're back there again. Like nothing changed. Like they never left. But then reality settles in, and you're reminded that they did. And that's when you face the hardest truth of all. They're not coming back to be the person you miss. Even if they came back physically, it wouldn't be the same. Because the version of them you loved existed in a moment that's already gone. And you can't recreate something that required two people when only one of them is still holding on. So slowly, you start choosing yourself. Not in some dramatic, life-changing moment, but in small, quiet ways. You stop blaming yourself for their inability to stay. You stop questioning whether you were enough. You stop shrinking yourself to fit inside someone else's uncertainty. And for the first time in a long time, you start realizing something that changes everything. You didn't lose them. You lost someone who was capable of losing you. And that difference matters more than you think. And the strangest part is, life doesn't stop. Not when they leave. Not when your chest still feels heavy. Not when you're still carrying conversations that never got finished. The world keeps moving like nothing happened, and you're forced to move with it. Even when part of you is still standing in the exact moment everything fell apart. At first you think healing is supposed to feel obvious. Like one day you wake up and they don't cross your mind anymore. Like one day their name doesn't mean anything. Like one day you feel like the version of yourself you were before they changed you. But that's not how it happens. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It happens quietly, in moments you don't even notice at first. Like the first time you go an entire day without checking your phone hoping they texted. The first time you hear their name and it doesn't ruin your mood. The first time you laugh without feeling guilty for moving on. It's subtle, almost invisible, but it's real. And somewhere along the way, you stop missing them the same way. Not because they didn't matter, but because you finally understand that what you were holding on to wasn't them anymore. It was the version of them you created in your mind. The version that stayed. The version that chose you. The version that didn't leave. But reality is different. Reality is the choices people make when they have the opportunity to stay, and they don't. And that realization hurts, but it also frees you, because you stop waiting. You stop hoping for closure that isn't coming. You stop needing an explanation from someone who already gave you their answer through their absence. And instead, you start returning to yourself. You start remembering who you were before you started measuring your worth through someone else's attention. You start rebuilding the parts of you that you abandoned just to keep them comfortable. You start becoming whole again. Not because someone saved you, but because you finally saved yourself. And one day, without realizing when it happened, you'll look back at this version of you, the one who thought they couldn't survive losing them, the one who thought the pain would last forever, the one who thought they lost everything, and you'll realize something that once felt impossible. You didn't break, you didn't disappear, you didn't lose yourself, you were just becoming someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who finally understands that the right people won't make you question your place in their life. They won't make you feel temporary. They won't make you earn the kind of love that should have been given freely. And when that person finally comes into your life, you won't have to chase them. You won't have to convince them. You won't have to wonder. Because they'll stay. Not because you begged them to, but because they never wanted to leave in the first place. And by then, you won't be the same person who was afraid of being alone. You'll be someone who knows their own value, someone who survived losing what they thought they needed, and discovered they were enough all along. I didn't realize she was becoming permanent while she was still temporary. That's the dangerous part. Nothing about it feels significant while it's happening. There's no warning, no voice in your head saying, remember this moment, because one day it's gonna hurt to remember. She just walked into my life like it was nothing, like she hadn't just walked into my future too. At first, she was just another person. Another conversation, another name in my phone, another laugh that blended into the noise of everything else. But slowly, without asking permission, she became the quiet place in my chaos. It wasn't instant, it was gradual. So gradual I didn't notice it happening. It was the way I started checking my phone, hoping it was her. The way her opinions started mattering more than everyone else's. The way bad days didn't feel as heavy when she was there. She didn't fix my problems. She just made them feel survivable, and that was enough. She saw parts of me I didn't show anyone. Not the version I performed, not the version I pretended to be. She saw the unfinished version, the insecure version, the quiet version, the version that didn't have everything figured out, and she didn't run. She stayed. That's what made it dangerous. Because when someone stays long enough, you stop preparing for them to leave. She became part of my routine, not in an obvious way, not in a loud, dramatic way, in the smallest ways. She was the person I wanted to tell things to first. The person I imagined next to me when something good happened. The person who existed in my thoughts without effort. It stopped feeling like effort to love her. It just felt normal, like breathing, like gravity, like something that had always been there. There were moments I wish I could go back to now. Not to change anything, just to feel them again. Sitting there doing nothing, but it meant everything. Laughing at things that weren't even funny. The silence that never felt uncomfortable. Silence is different when it's with the right person. It doesn't feel empty, it feels full. She made ordinary moments feel permanent. And I think that's why losing her didn't feel real at first. Because how do you lose something that became part of you? There wasn't one exact moment where everything broke. It wasn't dramatic. It was quieter than that. Distance started growing where closeness used to live. Conversations became shorter. Replies became slower. The warmth started fading in ways neither of us knew how to stop. And the worst part wasn't the ending. It was watching it end while it was still happening. It was feeling her slip away while she was still right there. There's a specific kind of pain that comes from watching someone become a stranger in real time. Someone who used to know everything about you suddenly knowing nothing. And you don't know when the last normal conversation happened. You don't know when the last real laugh happened. You don't know when the last time was that they loved you the same way. Because if you had known, you would have paid more attention. You would have stayed in that moment longer. You would have memorized it. But you didn't know it was the last time. Nobody ever does. When she left, she didn't just take herself with her. She took the version of me that existed when she was there. The version that believed things would last. The version that didn't question everything. The version that wasn't afraid of losing people. After her, something changed. I became quieter, more careful, more aware of how easily something beautiful can disappear. I stopped assuming people would stay. I stopped believing in forever so easily. It wasn't her fault. She didn't mean to become permanent. She didn't mean to leave marks that wouldn't fade, but she did. And time didn't erase her the way I thought it would. Time doesn't erase people like her. It just teaches you how to carry them differently. You stop thinking about them every day. You stop reaching for your phone. You stop expecting them to come back, but they never fully disappear. They exist in fragments, in songs you can't listen to the same way anymore, in places that feel different now, in random moments when your mind drifts without permission. Sometimes it hits you out of nowhere. You'll be living your life, laughing, moving forward, becoming someone new. And suddenly, she crosses your mind. Not because you want her back, but because for a moment you remember how it felt when she was there. You remember who you were. You remember how easy it was to exist. And it doesn't destroy you like it used to. It just lingers, like an echo. You wonder who she became. You wonder if she ever thinks about you too. Not in a painful way. Just in the quiet way people remember things that mattered. Because she wasn't just someone who passed through my life. She was someone who changed its direction. She taught me things without trying. She taught me how deeply I could feel, how vulnerable I could be, how much another person could matter. And she taught me that not everyone who feels like home stays. Some people are only meant to show you that feeling exists. They open that door. And even after they leave, you never forget what was on the other side. I don't miss her the same way anymore. I don't feel that sharp, unbearable emptiness, but I carry the memory of her, not as pain, as proof. Proof that she was real. Proof that it happened. Proof that for a moment in my life I had something that mattered. She didn't stay forever, but she stayed long enough to become unforgettable. And maybe that's the hardest part. Not that she left, but that no matter how much time passes, no matter who else walks into my life, there will always be a version of me somewhere in the past sitting next to her, completely unaware that he was living inside a memory he would never be able to forget. I think the worst part wasn't the days she left. It was all the days after when life kept going, like nothing had happened. The sun still came up. People still laughed. The world didn't stop to acknowledge that mine had changed. There wasn't a visible wound, no scar people could see, just an absence. And absence is strange, because it doesn't announce itself loudly. It shows up in small, quiet ways, in the moments when I instinctively reach for my phone to tell her something, before remembering she wasn't mine to tell anymore, in the pauses between thoughts when her name still existed out of habit, in the silence that replaced what used to be her. At first I told myself it wasn't permanent. I told myself we just needed space, time, distance. I told myself she'd come back. Because when someone becomes a part of your everyday life, your brain refuses to accept that they can just disappear. I kept expecting a message, not a long one, just something simple, something normal, something that would undo everything. But nothing came. And slowly I had to face something I didn't want to admit. She wasn't coming back. Not because she hated me, not because she wanted to hurt me, but because sometimes people leave without intending to return, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. That's when the questions started, the kind that don't have answers. I started replaying everything, every conversation, every moment, every small detail. I wondered when it started slipping away. I wondered if I missed something, if there was a moment I could have said something different, done something different, been someone different. I wondered if I cared too much, if I made myself too available, if I was too easy to lose. There's a specific kind of loneliness that comes from realizing you would have stayed, even when they didn't. It makes you question your value. It makes you question your place in people's lives. Because I was always there. I was always the one who replied first, the one who stayed present, the one who made sure she never felt alone. And when she left, it made me wonder if that ever mattered, or if I was just someone who filled space until I wasn't needed anymore. That thought stayed with me longer than she did. It changed how I moved through the world. I became more careful, but I stopped letting people see everything. I stopped trusting the permanence of feelings, because I learned that someone can make you feel like home and still leave. And there's nothing that prepares you for that. I started pretending I was fine, and eventually pretending became easier. Not because the pain disappeared, but because I got used to carrying it. Pain doesn't always stay loud. Sometimes it fades into something quiet or something you only notice when everything else is silent. And time kept moving. Whether I was ready or not, I met new people, I had new conversations, I built a life that didn't include her. But she never fully disappeared. Not really. She existed in the background, like a song you don't play anymore but still know every word to. Sometimes I'd hear something that reminded me of her, and for a second everything would stop. Not in a dramatic way, just enough to remind me that she was real, that it happened, that I didn't imagine it. And the strangest part is, I don't miss her the way I used to. I don't wake up hoping she'll come back. I don't wait for her name to appear on my phone. But there's still a version of me that exists in those memories. A version of me that didn't know how it would end. A version of me that believed she would stay. And I think about him sometimes, not with sadness, but with understanding. He didn't know he was building memories he'd spend years trying to forget. He didn't know that one day she'd just be someone he used to know. Not his person, not his home, just someone who passed through his life and left pieces behind. And maybe that's what makes someone unforgettable. Not that they stayed, but that even after they left, they still exist in who you became. She didn't stay in my life, but she stayed in my story. And some people never leave your story, no matter how far away they go. I think what hurt the most wasn't losing her. It was losing the version of myself that existed when she loved me. Because before her, I didn't overthink everything. I didn't analyze silence like it meant something. Silence was just silence. But after her, silence became an answer. I started noticing things I never used to notice. How fast people replied, how their tone changed, how effort slowly faded, because that's how it happened with her. Not all at once, not in a single moment. It was gradual, almost invisible, like watching the sun set. And then slowly, she didn't. Not in Anne. And then slowly, she didn't. Not in an obvious way. She just became harder to reach. Her replies got shorter. Her energy felt different. Not cold, just distant, like she was there but not fully. And I remember feeling it. That quiet shift, that subtle change, but I ignored it. Because admitting it would have made it real. And I wasn't ready for that. So I held on tighter, not physically, but emotionally. I gave more attention, more patience, more understanding. I thought if I loved her harder, she'd stay. But that's the thing no one tells you. You can't love someone into staying. You can't convince someone to feel what they've already stopped feeling. And the hardest part wasn't the day she left. It was the moment I realized she had already been gone long before that. She was still there physically, still someone I could talk to, but the version of her that loved me was already gone. And I felt it, in the way conversations felt forced, in the way I became the one trying to keep things alive, in the way I started feeling alone even when she was still there. That's a different kind of pain. Losing someone slowly, watching them become a stranger while they're still in your life. And I remember the exact moment it hit me. Not when she said goodbye, but when I stopped recognizing the way she looked at me. There was no warmth, no familiarity, just distance, like I was someone she used to know. And I realized something in that moment. I wasn't losing her. I had already lost her. I just hadn't accepted it yet. And there's nothing more helpless than realizing there's no fight left to fight. Because love isn't supposed to feel like convincing. It isn't supposed to feel like holding something together that's already falling apart. So eventually, I stopped trying, not because I didn't care, but because I cared enough to stop forcing something that didn't exist anymore. And that's when she really became the one I'd never forget. Not because she stayed, but because she showed me what it feels like when someone leaves slowly, and how quiet that kind of goodbye really is. I thought the story ended the day she left. I thought that was the final chapter, the goodbye, the silence, the empty space she left behind. But the truth is, the real ending didn't happen when she left. It happened much later, on a random day when I realized I hadn't thought about her once. Not in the morning, not in the afternoon, not at night. And that scared me. Because for so long she was everywhere, in every song, every quiet moment, every late night when my mind refused to rest. She lived in the smallest things. A phrase she used to say, a place we used to go. Even the version of myself I used to be. Losing her didn't just remove a person from my life, it removed a future I had already imagined. A future that felt real. And for a long time I didn't know who I was without that future. I kept checking my phone, not because she texted, but because part of me hoped she would. I kept wondering if she missed me too, if she ever thought about coming back, if she ever realized what she lost. But slowly, those questions stopped showing up. Not because I got answers, but because I stopped needing them. I stopped reaching for something that wasn't reaching back. I stopped holding on to memories that were only alive on my side. And one day I saw her name again. Not in my messages, not in my life, just somewhere. And my chest didn't tighten, my hands didn't shake, my world didn't stop. She had become what she was always going to become. Someone I loved, someone I lost, someone who changed me, but no longer someone who had power over me. And that's when I understood something. She wasn't meant to stay forever. She was meant to show me how deeply I was capable of loving. She was meant to show me what it felt like to give someone everything. And more importantly, she was meant to teach me that I could survive losing it. Because I did. I survived the silence. I survived the absence. I survived becoming someone new. And even now, she's still the one I'll never forget. Not because I still need her, not because I'm still waiting, but because she was the chapter that taught me how to let go. And some chapters, you don't erase. You just stop rereading. I thought I had time because nothing was breaking loudly. No slam doors, no screaming matches, no final fight that made it obvious something was wrong. You were still there, still replying, still saying it's okay. In that way people say it when they're trying to convince themselves more than you. I didn't realize how dangerous still can be. I told myself love doesn't disappear overnight. I believed it erodes slowly, so slowly that you can always catch it before it's gone. I thought awareness was enough. I thought noticing the distance meant I was already halfway to fixing it. I thought intention counted more than execution, and I leaned on that belief every time you asked for more, and I answered with soon. Soon became my shield. Soon meant I didn't have to change today. Soon meant I could acknowledge your pain without sitting in it. I didn't feel like a bad person. That's the part that scares me the most now. I felt reasonable, calm, logical. I had explanations for everything, why I was tired, why I was distracted, why I couldn't show up the way you needed yet. I told myself love should be patient, understanding, flexible. I didn't ask myself why flexibility always bent in my direction. You were patient. God, you were patient. And I mistook that patience for permanence. I didn't hear your silence as a warning. I heard it as peace. I didn't see your restraint as of exhaustion. I saw it as maturity. Every time you stopped bringing things up, I felt relief instead of concern. I thought we were past the hard conversations, not realizing you had just stopped inviting me into them. I wasn't absent. I was worse. I was almost present. Just enough to keep you hoping. Just enough to keep myself comfortable. I showed up when it was easy, when I felt like it. When the idea of losing you scared me for a moment, I gave effort in bursts, like damage control instead of consistency. I loved reactively, not intentionally. And every time you softened again, I relaxed. crisis avoided, clock reset, more time earned. I didn't understand that love doesn't reset like that. It remembers. There were nights you needed reassurance and I gave logic instead. Moments you needed closeness and I offered distance disguised as space. I told myself I was respecting independence, when really I was protecting myself from emotional responsibility. I didn't want to be needed in a way that required sacrifice. I didn't want love to demand anything I wasn't ready to give. So I delayed. I postponed effort the way people postpone hard conversations with themselves. I told myself I'd step up when life slowed down, when I felt more stable, when I felt more confident, when I felt ready. I never questioned why ready kept moving further away. You tried to meet me where I was. I didn't notice how far you had traveled to get there. I didn't ask what it cost you to stay quiet, to stay hopeful, to stay soft with someone who kept proving they could live without urgency. I thought love meant not pressuring me. I didn't realize I was teaching you that your needs were negotiable. And the worst part, it all felt normal, comfortable, manageable, no alarms, no countdown. Just time passing quietly while something important was being neglected. I thought love would warn me before it left. I thought there would be a moment where I'd feel it slipping through my fingers and finally act. I didn't know love leaves in inches, not miles. I didn't know people start letting go long before they actually walk away. I thought I had time because you stayed. I didn't realize staying was costing you something. And while I was busy believing tomorrow would be better, you were learning how to survive today without me. The shift didn't announce itself. It never does. It crept in through routine, through comfort, through the quiet confidence I had that you weren't going anywhere. I stopped checking in and started assuming you were okay, assuming you understood, assuming that if something was really wrong, you'd say it again, louder this time. That assumption became my excuse. You had said it before, multiple times, softly at first, then more directly, and with that tired honesty people use when they're running out of energy but not hope yet. I remember thinking, we've already talked about this, as if talking once was supposed to fix a pattern I kept repeating. You didn't change overnight, you adapted. You asked less, you needed less, or at least you showed less. And instead of being alarmed, I felt relieved. That's the part I hate admitting. Relief felt like peace to me. I thought we were stabilizing. I thought we were maturing past the needy phase. I didn't realize you were just learning how to want me less so it wouldn't hurt as much when I disappointed you again. Your messages shortened, not cold, just efficient. Your tone softened, but not in the warm way, in the careful way. You stopped circling back to things I ignored, stopped explaining your feelings in different ways, hoping one would finally land. I noticed all of it. I just didn't respond to it. I told myself I was busy, that life was demanding, that stress changes people, that love doesn't need constant reassurance if it's real. I told myself we were solid enough to survive a dry spell. What I didn't admit was that I was letting you do all the emotional maintenance while I enjoyed the benefits. I wasn't scared you'd leave. I was confident you'd adjust. That confidence made me careless. Every time you almost pulled away and then stayed, it reinforced the wrong lesson. I thought love meant endurance. I thought commitment meant tolerance. I didn't understand that every time you swallowed your feelings to keep the peace, something inside you hardened just a little. You tried to explain the loneliness of being with someone who isn't fully there. I responded with logic, with reassurance that didn't come with action, with promises that weren't anchored to timelines. I made you feel heard without making you feel prioritized. That's a dangerous combination. I told myself I wasn't neglectful because I wasn't gone, because I still showed up sometimes, because I still cared. But caring without consistency doesn't feel like love on the receiving end. It feels like uncertainty, like waiting, like hoping you'll finally be important enough today. I didn't mean to make you feel optional, but I treated your needs like they were negotiable. You started finding peace without me. I saw it and misread it as growth. I didn't realize you were emotionally rehearsing a life where I wasn't central anymore. You were learning how not to reach for me first, how not to expect me to show up, how to self-soothe the parts of you that used to trust me. I thought love would fight to stay. I didn't realize love also gets tired. And by the time I felt the distance clearly, by the time it stopped feeling subtle and started feeling real, you were already halfway gone. Not physically, emotionally. You were still next to me, still talking, still trying in your own quiet way. But something had shifted. You weren't waiting anymore. You were preparing, and I was still telling myself I had time. When it finally happened, it didn't feel real. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was calm. You didn't explode. You didn't accuse. You didn't unload every grievance you'd been carrying for months. You sat there steady, almost gentle, and told me you couldn't keep doing this. That sentence alone should have shattered me, but it didn't. Not right away. I was still convinced this was a phase, a scare, a wake-up call I could respond to in time. I started saying all the things I should have said earlier. I promised change with urgency this time. I talked about effort like it was something I could flip on instantly. I reached for you emotionally in a way I hadn't before, and for a brief second I thought I was saving us. But you weren't moved, and that terrified me. You looked at me the way someone looks at a door they've already closed. Not angry, not cold, just resolved. That's when I realized something awful. You weren't asking anymore. You were informing me. I tried to understand how it got there so fast. I replayed the last few weeks in my head, searching for the exact moment I lost you. I thought maybe it was one argument, one missed call, one bad night. I needed it to be a single mistake so I could convince myself I wasn't that careless. But there wasn't one moment. There were hundreds of small delays. Hundreds of times I chose comfort over courage. Hundreds of moments where you needed reassurance and I gave you patience instead, as if patience could replace presence. I felt sick realizing how predictable this was, how avoidable, how many chances I had to change the trajectory and didn't. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't feel the pressure yet. I kept telling myself I loved you, and I did. But love without action doesn't protect anything. You told me you were tired of feeling like you had to convince me to care at the same level. Tired of feeling like wanting more made you needy. Tired of shrinking yourself so I wouldn't feel overwhelmed. And hearing that made something collapse inside me, because I finally saw the pattern clearly. I only rose to the occasion when I felt like I was about to lose you. And by then, it was already too late. I realized how manipulative that pattern is, even if it's unintentional. How loving someone only at the brink teaches them that pain is the price of your effort, that their breaking point is what activates your commitment. I never wanted to be that person, but intention doesn't erase impact. When you walked away, I didn't chase immediately. Part of me was still stuck in denial, still assuming this was temporary, still believing time would smooth it over like it always had. I told myself you needed space, that I should respect it, that reaching out too much would push you further away. Another delay, another excuse, and then it hit me all at once. This wasn't distance you needed. This was distance you had already survived. You weren't cooling off, you were letting go. That realization hurt in a way that felt permanent. Not sharp, not explosive, just heavy, like something settling into my chest that wasn't ever going to move again. I understood then that I didn't lose you when you left. I lost you while you were still trying. And the most brutal part of all was knowing that when you needed me most, I was convinced I had time. I didn't run out of love, I ran out of chances. And for the first time, there was nothing I could say to delay the truth anymore. The quiet after you left was different than I expected. It wasn't empty. It was loud in a slow, suffocating way. Every room felt like it was holding something I forgot to take responsibility for. Every moment of silence felt like a mirror I couldn't look away from anymore. I kept waiting for the sharp pain, the breakdown, the dramatic regret that would justify how badly I felt. But what came instead was something worse. Clarity. I saw myself clearly for the first time, without the buffer of your patience protecting me from the consequences of my behavior. I saw how often I delayed growth because someone loved me enough to tolerate my stagnation. How I confused being accepted with being entitled to stay the same. How I let comfort turn into complacency and called it stability. I wasn't blindsided, I was exposed. I replayed conversations differently now. Not to defend myself, but to hear what you were actually saying beneath the words. The exhaustion, the quiet pleading, the way you kept asking for presence, not perfection. I realized how many times you gave me the answer to the test, and I still failed it because I didn't think the grade mattered yet. I kept thinking about timing, how unfair it felt that I finally understood everything when there was no one left to prove it to. But that's the lie I had been telling myself all along, that understanding comes first and action follows. In reality, action is what creates understanding. You don't wake up ready. You become ready by choosing discomfort over delay. I had chosen delay. I saw how fear ran my decisions. Fear of being inadequate, fear of being exposed, fear of committing fully and still falling short. So I stayed half involved, half invested, half present. I thought that would protect me. It didn't. It just made the loss cleaner. Loving someone late is a specific kind of self-betrayal, because you know the love was real. You just rationed it. You treated it like a resource that needed conserving instead of something that needed expressing. And now there was no one left to receive it. I wanted to believe you'd come back once I changed, that if I worked on myself hard enough, fast enough, the universe would reward me with another chance. But that's not growth. That's bargaining. And growth doesn't promise reunion, it promises awareness. So I stopped chasing outcomes and started interrogating patterns. I asked myself why I only show up fully when I'm afraid, why urgency is the only thing that seems to activate my best self, why I wait for loss to teach me what presence could have taught me earlier. Those questions didn't feel productive. They felt uncomfortable, which is how I knew they mattered. I don't demonize myself anymore, but I don't absolve myself either. I hold the truth steady. I loved you and I still failed you. Both can exist at the same time. Love doesn't cancel impact. Caring doesn't erase neglect. If there's anything I carry forward from this, it's this. Time isn't generous. It doesn't pause while you figure yourself out. It doesn't protect what you refuse to tend to. It doesn't care about potential. It responds to consistency. I thought time would wait for me to be ready. I didn't understand that time rewards the people who act before they are. You leaving didn't ruin me. It revealed me. And now when something matters, I don't tell myself later. I don't rely on patience I didn't earn. I don't confuse staying with safety, because I've learned this the hard way. The people who leave quietly don't do it suddenly. They do it after waiting longer than they should have. And if love ever finds me again, it won't need more time. It will need presence. It will need courage. It will need me to show up before I'm afraid to lose it. I thought I had time. I didn't. What if I'm the problem? Not them. Not the timing. Not the distance. Not the circumstances I keep blaming. What if every relationship that ended, every goodbye I didn't see coming, every moment I felt abandoned, has one thing in common? Me. That thought didn't come gently. It didn't feel insightful or mature. It felt like my chest collapsing inward at 2:37 in the morning, staring at a ceiling I've memorized because sleep keeps avoiding me. Because during the day it's easier. During the day I can convince myself I tried my best, that I loved hard, that I cared deeply, that I was the one who got hurt. But night doesn't let you lie. At night, memories stop being selective. They show up uninvited. Not the highlight reel, but the moments I edited out. The tone in my voice. The way I shut down instead of speaking up. The way I needed reassurance, but asked for it in ways that pushed people away. I replay conversations I wish I could take back. Not because of what they said, but because of how I responded. I see it now. I loved like someone who was afraid of being left. Every "are we okay?" wasn't really a question. It was a plea. Every time I pulled away, it wasn't confidence, and it was fear wearing armor. I didn't say, "I'm scared you'll leave." I said, "You're acting different." I didn't say, "I feel insecure." I said, "I don't care anymore," hoping they'd prove me wrong. And the worst part, I thought I was protecting myself. I told myself I was just being cautious, that I was guarding my heart, that I was strong for not needing anyone too much. But strength doesn't look like shutting people out, and protection doesn't look like sabotaging something before it can hurt you. I think back to how quickly my mood could change, how one unanswered text could spiral into assumptions, how silence felt like rejection instead of just silence. I didn't realize it then, but I was asking people to heal wounds they didn't cause. I brought old pain into new love and expected it to behave differently. And when it didn't, I resented them for it. I noticed the pattern now, how I loved intensely at first, how I showed up fully emotionally, almost desperately, And then slowly, fear crept in. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being replaced. Fear of loving harder than I was loved back, so I started testing them. Not out loud, not directly. I tested them with distance, with coldness, with silence. I wanted proof without asking for it. That's not love, that's insecurity disguised as independence. And it hurts to admit because I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I wasn't malicious, I wasn't careless, I was unhealed. I thought love would fix me, that being chosen would finally quiet the voice in my head that says, "You're not enough." That if someone stayed long enough, the fear would eventually disappear. But it doesn't work like that. Love doesn't erase insecurity, it exposes it. And mine was loud. So what if I'm the problem? Not in the way that makes me a villain, but in the way that forces me to look inward instead of outward. Because blaming others kept me comfortable, but questioning myself, that changes everything. And this is where it starts. I wish the realization ended there. I wish awareness was enough to stop the damage. But knowing you're the problem doesn't immediately make you better. It just makes the mirror harder to avoid. Once I asked the question, I couldn't stop seeing the answers. I started noticing how defensive I got when someone brought up how they felt. How quickly I heard criticism instead of concern. How often I turned conversations into debates instead of listening. I wasn't listening to understand, I was listening to survive. Every serious talk felt like a threat. Every boundary felt like rejection. Every request felt like proof that I wasn't enough as I was. So I pushed back, I minimized their feelings, I justified my reactions. I explained myself instead of apologizing. I said things like, "That's not what I meant," when what they were really saying was, "That hurt." And somehow I convinced myself that intent mattered more than impact. It doesn't. I see now how exhausting that must have been. Loving someone who needed reassurance but resisted vulnerability. Someone who wanted closeness but panicked when it actually arrived. Someone who asked for honesty but flinched when it showed up. I wanted to be understood without explaining myself. I wanted patience without offering clarity. I wanted loyalty without giving emotional safety. That's not fair. I think about how often I confused intensity with connection. How I thought feeling deeply meant I was loving deeply. How I mistook anxiety for passion and attachment for commitment. I was loud in my love at the beginning, texts, effort, attention, and then quieter when fear took over. Shorter replies, longer pauses, walls disguised as space. I didn't realize how confusing that was. How unsafe inconsistency feels to someone who's trying to love you. And when they finally pulled away, I played the victim. I told myself they gave up, that they didn't fight hard enough, that they didn't love me the way I loved them. But love isn't measured by how much you feel. It's measured by how you treat people when you're triggered. And that's where I failed. I think about the moments I chose pride over peace, being right over being kind, control over connection. I didn't know how to sit with discomfort, so I reacted. I didn't know how to express fear, so I disguised it as distance. I didn't know how to trust calm love, so I looked for problems to stay alert. And slowly, quietly, the people I cared about started to feel like they were walking on eggshells around me. That realization hurts in a way I can't explain, because I never wanted to be someone who drains the people they love. I never wanted to be the source of confusion. I never wanted to make anyone feel like they had to earn peace with me. But intention doesn't undo damage. And that's the part I had to sit with. The idea that I wasn't a monster, but I wasn't safe either. I carried unresolved wounds into relationships and expected them to adapt. I let past hurt speak louder than present reality. I let fear decide how I showed up, and every time someone left, it reinforced the belief that I wasn't worth staying for, without realizing I was helping create the very ending I feared. That's the trap. Fear of abandonment creates behavior that pushes people away, then uses their absence as proof that the fear was justified. I lived in that loop for a long time, and breaking it meant accepting something uncomfortable. I didn't need to be loved harder. I needed to love healthier. I needed to stop asking people to save me from myself. And that's when the question changed. It stopped being, what if I'm the problem, and became, what am I going to do about it? That question didn't have an easy answer. What am I going to do about it? Because recognizing the pattern was painful, but changing it meant letting go of the version of myself I'd been defending for years. I had to stop romanticizing my pain. I wasn't deep for overthinking. I wasn't passionate for reacting emotionally. I wasn't guarded. I was afraid. And fear had been driving the wheel far longer than I wanted to admit. The first thing I had to accept was this. My feelings were valid, but my reactions weren't always healthy. Being triggered doesn't mean being right. Being hurt doesn't give you permission to hurt back, even quietly, even unintentionally. So I started doing the hardest thing I knew how to do. I paused. Not perfectly, not every time, but intentionally. When I felt that familiar tightening in my chest, the urge to pull away, to go silent, to test, I stopped and asked myself what was actually happening. Was I responding to the present or reliving the past? Most of the time, it was the past. Old wounds speaking through a new situation, old fears projecting onto someone who hadn't done anything wrong. I had to learn how to say things I used to hide. I'm feeling insecure right now. I'm scared of losing you. I don't need space. I need reassurance. Those sentences felt humiliating at first. Vulnerability always does when you've mistaken independence for strength. But something changed when I started being honest instead of strategic. I stopped trying to control outcomes. I stopped manipulating situations to protect my ego. I stopped expecting people to read my mind. And for the first time, I realized something important. Healthy love doesn't need tests. It needs clarity. It needs consistency. It needs self-awareness. I also had to take responsibility for my healing, not as a concept, but as a daily practice. That meant unpacking why silence terrified me, why I associated calm with disinterest, why I equated being chosen with being worthy. It meant admitting that some of my insecurities weren't caused by relationships at all. They existed long before them. Love didn't break me, it revealed me. And instead of blaming the mirror, I started listening to it. I began setting standards, not for others, but for myself. I don't punish people for my triggers anymore. I don't withdraw to feel powerful. I don't turn fear into distance, and when I mess up, and because I still do, I own it. No defensiveness, no justifications, no turning apologies into explanations. Just accountability. Because growth isn't about never hurting people, or it's about noticing when you do, and caring enough to change. I don't see myself as the problem anymore. I see myself as someone who was unprepared and chose to become better instead of bitter. And maybe that's the real resolution. Not pretending the past didn't happen, not erasing the damage, but learning from it deeply enough that it doesn't repeat. So if love comes back into my life, and I believe it will, it won't meet the version of me that was terrified of losing it. It'll meet someone who knows who they are. Someone who doesn't chase reassurance. Someone who doesn't confuse intensity with intimacy. Someone who understands that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, honest, accountable, and finally, ready. When she left me, I didn't know if I would ever be okay again. Not in a dramatic way, in a quiet, terrifying way. I remember the exact moment it became real. Not when she said the words, but when the room felt different after. Like the air had weight. Like something invisible had packed its bags and walked out before I could stop it. When she left me, the world didn't fall apart. I did. I kept waking up expecting a text that wasn't coming. Kept checking my phone like muscle memory would somehow rewrite reality. I'd replay old conversations over and over, looking for the moment I should have done something different. Said something softer, listened longer, cared louder. The worst part wasn't losing her. It was realizing I helped push her away. I didn't cheat, I didn't lie, but I wasn't present. I was there without being there, and that might hurt more. I thought love was just staying. I didn't realize it was showing up, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it required change. After she left, everything became quiet, too quiet. The silence followed me everywhere, in the car, in the gym, in bed at night when my thoughts got louder than my breathing. I'd stare at the ceiling wondering how someone could mean everything to you one day and be gone the next. I missed her in ways I couldn't explain. I missed the version of myself I was when she loved me. I started questioning everything, my worth, my effort, whether I was ever enough or just convenient. And the scariest thought kept creeping in. What if this was my one chance? And I blew it. There were nights I felt completely hollow, like I was moving through life on autopilot, smiling when I was supposed to, laughing when it was expected, but breaking down the second I was alone. Heartbreak doesn't scream, it whispers, and it whispers all the worst things about you. It told me I waited too long, that I took her for granted, that I loved too passively, and the truth is, some of that was right. I didn't lose her because I didn't care. I lost her because I didn't show it the way she needed. That realization hurts more than the breakup itself. But here's the part nobody talks about. There came a moment when I realized missing her wasn't killing me. Avoiding growth was. Pain either repeats you or rebuilds you. And I got tired of repeating myself. I stopped asking, why did she leave? And started asking, who was I when she did? I learned that love isn't just intensity, it's consistency, it's presence, it's accountability without being asked. I learned that saying I love you means nothing if your actions never back it up. And slowly, quietly, I started changing. Not for her, not to win her back, but because I never want to be the reason someone feels alone while standing right next to me again. I still miss her, but I don't hate myself anymore for losing her, because now I understand something I didn't before. She wasn't just someone I loved. She was a lesson I needed. She didn't leave to destroy me. She left to wake me up, and today, I'm not healed. I'm not over it. But I'm better. I communicate now. I listen without waiting to respond. I show love in ways that don't require reminders. I'm becoming the man I should have been back then. And maybe she'll never see that version of me, but someone will. And when that happens, this heartbreak won't have been pointless, because losing her taught me how to love deeper, stand firmer, and never again let comfort replace effort. She was the chapter that hurt the most, but she's also the reason the story gets better from here. And if you're wondering how I'm doing now, I'm still standing, still growing, and finally moving forward. Am I hard to love? That question didn't come from a fight. It didn't come from an argument or a breakup conversation. It came from the silence that followed. The kind of silence that doesn't slam the door. It just stops answering. The kind that makes you replay everything, not because you want to, but because your mind refuses to move forward without understanding what went wrong. I didn't always ask that question. At first I blamed timing, distance, stress, different stages of life. I told myself it just wasn't meant to work. But when it keeps happening, when people leave in similar ways with similar exhaustion in their voices, you start to wonder if it's not bad luck. You start to wonder if it's you. I think back to the way I loved, how intense it was, how deeply I felt everything, how quickly I attached meaning to small moments. At the time, I thought that meant I cared more, that I loved harder. Now I'm not so sure, because loving hard doesn't always mean loving well. I wanted reassurance constantly, not because they weren't giving it, but because I didn't trust it to last. Every calm moment felt temporary. Every good day felt fragile, like something bad was waiting around the corner. And instead of enjoying love when it was there, I monitored it. I watched for changes in tone. I noticed response times. I read into body language. I turned silence into stories that hurt me before reality ever could. I didn't tell them I was scared. I didn't say, I feel insecure. I didn't say, I need comfort. I expected them to notice. And when they didn't, I felt unseen. So I pulled back. I told myself I was being independent. I told myself I was protecting my heart. But if I'm being honest, I was testing them. I wanted to see if they'd chase me, if they'd fight for me, if they'd prove I mattered. That's not fair to put on someone. I didn't realize how heavy that kind of love feels from the other side, how confusing it is to love someone who needs reassurance but doesn't know how to ask for it. I wonder now if loving me felt like walking on eggshells, like one wrong move could shift my mood, like they were responsible for keeping me okay. That thought hurts, because I never wanted to be someone people had to manage. I never wanted to be someone who drained the room. I never wanted my insecurities to become someone else's burden. But intention doesn't erase impact. And the more I reflect, the more I see moments where I chose self-protection over vulnerability, where I chose silence over honesty, where I chose control over connection. I didn't trust love when it was calm. I only trusted it when it was loud. And maybe that's where things started to break. So yeah, am I hard to love? I don't ask that to punish myself. I ask it because avoiding the question didn't stop the pattern. And this is where it begins. Once the question settles in your chest, it doesn't leave quietly. It follows you into memories you thought you'd already processed. Moments you once blamed on circumstance start feeling personal. I started looking back, not at how they hurt me, but at how I showed up when things weren't perfect. And that's when it got uncomfortable. I noticed how defensive I became when someone tried to tell me how they felt, how quickly I heard criticism instead of concern, how fast my guard went up the moment I felt misunderstood. I wasn't listening to connect. I was listening to protect myself. Every serious conversation felt like a threat. Every boundary felt like rejection. Every request felt like proof that I wasn't enough as I was. So I reacted. I explained myself instead of listening. I justified my behavior instead of acknowledging their feelings. I focused on being right instead of being safe to talk to. I told myself that's not what I meant. But what they were saying wasn't about my intent. It was about how they felt. And I didn't realize how invalidating that can be. I see it now. I wanted unconditional understanding, but I didn't always offer emotional safety in return. I wanted patience, but I struggled to sit with discomfort. I wanted reassurance, but I resisted vulnerability. I wanted love without exposure, and that doesn't exist. I think about how inconsistent I could be, how some days I was open, affectionate, fully present, and other days I was distant, quiet, unreachable, not because they did something wrong, but because my own thoughts got loud. I didn't communicate when I was overwhelmed. I withdrew, and silence is confusing. It makes people guess. It makes them question where they stand. I wonder how many times someone felt like they were losing me without knowing why. That thought sits heavy, because I never wanted to make anyone feel unsure. I just didn't know how to sit with my own uncertainty. I also realize now how much pressure I put on love to fix things it was never meant to fix. I wanted love to heal my self-doubt, to quiet my anxiety, to give me a sense of worth I hadn't built on my own. And when it didn't, I felt disappointed, hurt, unfulfilled. But that wasn't fair to them. They weren't failing me. I was asking them to carry things that weren't theirs. I confused closeness with security, intensity with intimacy, attachment with love. And when the intensity faded, as it naturally does, I panicked. I mistook stability for boredom, calm for distance, peace for disinterest. So I searched for problems, or created them, because chaos felt familiar. And that's when it really hit me. I wasn't hard to love because I was too much. I was hard to love because I didn't know how to be steady. I didn't know how to trust love when it wasn't constantly proving itself. And the saddest part, I didn't see it while it was happening. I only saw it once it was over. Once they were tired. Once they stopped trying to explain. Once the silence wasn't temporary anymore. That's when the question stopped feeling theoretical. Am I hard to love? Or am I just afraid to be fully seen? That question stopped being abstract once I realized something important. I wasn't just afraid of being abandoned. I was afraid of being truly known. Because being known means being seen clearly. And if someone sees you clearly, they can leave for reasons you can't deny. So instead of letting people see me fully, I controlled the version of myself they got. I showed strength when I was scared, indifference when I was hurt, confidence when I was unsure. I thought that made me easier to love, but it did the opposite. It made me unpredictable. People never knew which version of me they were going to get. The open one or the closed one, the affectionate one or the distant one, the calm one or the overthinking one. And inconsistency doesn't feel romantic from the outside. It feels unsafe. I see now how often I waited for people to prove they cared instead of trusting that they did. How I needed repeated confirmation, not because they weren't giving it, but because I didn't believe it could last. I kept one foot out the door emotionally, not to leave them, but to soften the blow if they did. And when you love someone with an exit plan in your pocket, they feel it. They feel the hesitation, the lack of surrender, the way you never fully settle into the relationship. I thought I was being cautious, but I was being guarded. And guarded love is exhausting to receive. I also had to face how much pride played a role in my behavior. How difficult it was for me to admit when I was wrong without explaining myself. How apologies felt incomplete because I still needed to be understood. I'm sorry, but that "but" did damage because it shifted the focus back to me. I didn't realize how often I centered my own pain in moments where someone else was asking to be heard. How my fear of being the bad guy made it impossible to sit in accountability. I wasn't abusive, I wasn't cruel, but I wasn't emotionally mature either. And maturity isn't about good intentions. It's about how you respond when someone tells you they're hurting. I think about how many times I could have paused instead of reacting. How many moments could have gone differently if I'd chosen curiosity over defensiveness? What are you feeling? What do you need? How can I show up better? Those questions didn't come naturally to me then, because asking them meant accepting that I wasn't perfect, that I contributed to the breakdown, that love didn't fail. I did in small ways over time. That realization didn't break me, it humbled me. I stopped asking whether I was hard to love in a self-pitying way, and started asking it in a responsible one. Not what's wrong with me, but what patterns am I repeating? Because patterns are fixable. Blind spots can be illuminated, habits can be unlearned, and for the first time I felt something different than shame. I felt ownership. I couldn't change the past. I couldn't undo the exhaustion I caused. I couldn't rewrite the endings. But I could stop carrying the same version of myself into the future, and that mattered. So maybe I was hard to love, not because I was unworthy, but because I was unprepared to trust, unprepared to communicate, unprepared to stay present when love wasn't loud, and realizing that didn't make me smaller. It gave me a direction. I don't ask that question the same way anymore. It used to come from shame, from replaying endings, from wondering what people saw in me that made them leave. Now it comes from awareness, because the truth is, I'm not hard to love when I'm honest. I'm not hard to love when I communicate instead of withdrawing. I'm not hard to love when I stop asking people to read my mind. I had to learn that love doesn't require perfection. It requires responsibility. Responsibility for how my fear shows up. Responsibility for how my silence affects others. Responsibility for how my past bleeds into the present. I started doing the uncomfortable work, not all at once, not cleanly, but consistently. I learned to pause before reacting, to name insecurity instead of hiding it, to ask for reassurance without testing someone's loyalty. I'm feeling unsure right now. I need a little comfort. I'm not upset, I'm just overwhelmed. Those words felt exposing at first. But exposure is safer than confusion. I also learned to let people be human, to stop expecting them to fix things they didn't break, to stop measuring love by how anxious it made me feel, to stop confusing calm with disinterest. Peace isn't boring. It's unfamiliar, and unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. I don't disappear anymore when things get heavy. I don't go silent to feel in control. I don't punish people with distance. When I mess up, because I still do, I own it. No explaining, no defending, no shifting the blame, just accountability. Because growth isn't about never hurting people, it's about noticing when you do, and changing fast enough that it doesn't become a pattern. I've learned that love doesn't leave because you're imperfect. It leaves when it feels unsafe to stay. And safety isn't built through intensity, it's built through consistency, communication, and trust. So if love comes back into my life, and I believe it will, it won't meet the version of me that was quietly begging to be chosen. It'll meet someone who knows how to stay present, someone who doesn't turn fear into distance, someone who understands that being loved starts with being honest. Am I hard to love? Maybe I was, but I'm not committed to being that person anymore, and that's the difference.